So yeah, I guess the point is, have a look at some of the documentaries on Vimeo if you're going to do something like that, because the structure and the style and the quality is going to suit that, and quite often it is the subjects talking about themselves, starting with something quite compelling or a bit of tension, and going from there. Yours, Andy, sounds more like, it kind of makes me think of Rocket Boom, that there's a lot of material there that's going to be quite visually static. So I don't know if you had any ideas of how you were going to treat that.
Maybe get a few vox pops of people talking about their experiences with it, and then go through trying to do something relatively simple and filming me trying to do it, a bit tongue-in-cheek as well.
Yeah, I think it probably does need that tongue-in-cheek quality to bring it alive to some extent. Yeah.
Hopefully me ranting will be
I was just thinking of rants will be how it goes. What about you, Samuel?
Well, I need to take thank you. Like lots of detailed shots. Maybe I had this risk, which I don't know if it would be good or not to try to do box pops, but maybe it would be like quite conventional in a sense. So I have like quite an idea of how to start the video, like giving like detailed shots, not giving the full picture, and not starting with the actual library, but with the surroundings, with the old buildings, and telling the viewer about the paradox that in the 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of buildings were knocked down for the sake of progress.
Yeah.
So I'd like to show some of that heritage buildings first. So like look at this. Well, buildings like this were not in such an argumentative way, not like telling the viewer everything, but like showing things so that the viewer will get a sense of that. So show things, buildings like this were knocked down, and now look at this, and this is also going to be knocked down, and there are not so many examples.
So, because I think what's really interesting about the three subjects you chose is, like I said, they're all very different. And so your subject, Desi, is people, is a particular person and her family. Your subject, Andy, is a technology and is something quite static. And yours is, well, not necessarily beautiful, but old buildings and the people who feel strongly about that. So yours maybe, it depends on the buildings themselves, but yours may be led by some very strong cinematography, if you like, of the buildings and the people's voices rather than the people themselves, because we talked about the building and the enthusiasm and the passion would come through the tone of the voice, if you like. So I think all three would warrant very different treatments. Do you know what the point is of yours? So we talked about having a point.
Yes, well, it's just like making at least the people think about what is gained and what is lost when you knock down a building like this one, so that at least both sides are shown, because in principle it's like a very obvious subject that there is a building that nobody likes, which is ugly, like objectively ugly, but it may not be as ugly, or this may just be a conception of.
Let me play devil's advocate. Why do you need both sides?
Well, because maybe the purpose of the video would be to raise the point, to like take something which is like preconceived and which is like fate, and turn it around and say, well, why are we doing this?
Okay. I'm just thinking this through. If the point is why are we doing this, then why, I'm going to take the other point, the other part of this, which is why speak to the people who don't want it to happen? because that's not going to answer the question why we're doing this. That's going to answer the question, why should we not do this? If you see what I mean.
Well, I'd like to have that view, because in the other sense, if I only have one side, it's like explaining what is going to happen, and we already have that. There are like videos which explain and show, like with recreations, 3D recreations, how it's going to be. There is a website by the City Council and by Argent which says we have all these ideas for,
right.
So that has already been explained.
Yeah.
And also as a story, I think well, it may be like a set topic, no, that is quite recurrent. It's not the first video that is going to be made of something which has like a sentimental a building to which people have sentimental ties and don't want it to have it knocked down, no? So it's not the first video of its kind, but I think it is quite interesting, and also because I think it is like well, when it's knocked down, it will remain like a history track, no?
Yeah, and I think that goes to the heart of what your documentary is trying to do, is document something that is disappearing, that is going to disappear, and the feelings around that. And I think you need to focus more on that. I think almost as a journalist you are trying to present both sides of a story through habit and through principle. But at the same time you recognise that this video doesn't exist in isolation, and in a sense that's the reason for objectivity and for trying to present both sides of the story, is because traditionally there isn't anything else to present the other side, so you have to do both. But I think that the existence of videos from Birmingham City Council and so on means that you can afford to re-examine that. This is a diagram by Andy Dickinson about moving from TV to online. So this is actually aimed at people who are producing video for the TV and then repurposing it for the web. And it's a good illustration of that kind of dynamic and those questions. So on TV, you would collect all kinds of raw material and then you would edit it together into a narrative that had a beginning, a middle and an end. It would have balance because it has to represent all sides of the story. But online you can start to split that apart. And as I said earlier, one of the kind of qualities of online video is that intimacy, that immediacy, the fact that you are close to what's happening. And to some extent, I think, rather than have one video which tries to tell both sides of the story, you're better having one video which is about the people who love this old building, who want to protect it. And actually it might be less about why we shouldn't get rid of it, and more about what's great about what it is, if you see what I mean, why they do like that. And then you might do another video which is the other side of the story, or it sounds like there are already those videos out there and you just link to them, yeah, or embed them alongside. So that's worth bearing in mind. Just to come back to Andy Dickinson's diagram, you know, this is all the raw material, and then you start to do what's called chunking. So you might have the car crash footage and more footage together. You'll have all the interviews together, maps together, plus information about other accidents, and you compile that all together. You're not limited by time and space, so you can start to pull that out and let people explore the story in their own ways. I'm just going to pause this. Sorry? Oh God, yeah. So I just want to briefly cover some basic guidelines around filming video, kind of conventions of filming. You'll have noticed in the videos that you filmed of each other, you're all dead centre. But if you look at, not that one, go back to Ira. You'll notice that he is placed off-centre. There's this thing called the rule of thirds, which applies in photography as well as video, and the idea is that imagine dividing up that screen into thirds. So you've got 2 lines running down there, split it into 3 chunks, and then 2 lines running across, and split it into 3 rows. Where those lines intersect, which is here and here and here and here, that's the point at which you should have your subject. Okay? So in this case, Ira is positioned to the left and in the top third of the screen. And his face is right where those lines cross over. You could put him here. You could even put him, have something down here or something down there. You could have more than one. And if you look at painting, the same principles are used in painting as well. So try and position your subject around there, and possibly sometimes you'll have a diagonal composition where you have other elements in those kind of bottom thirds. But be aware of those principles. Okay. The 360-degree rule is mainly designed for kind of studio filming, and that's the idea that, in fact, I'm not sure it's called the 180-degree rule. I've written that wrong. If you imagine you're in a room and you're filming that way, as soon as you move beyond that 180-degree range, you start to confuse people. Okay? The classic example is if I film Andy talking and he's on the right-hand side of the screen talking to the left, and then I film Desi and you're in exactly the same space. Even if that was the case, so I've basically moved around and you're here, if you see what I mean, it doesn't. It kind of confuses you spatially. So try to imagine, that 180 degrees through which you can film, and don't break that, or you start to confuse people. Likewise, obviously, if somebody's talking to someone else, have them talking into space, and the other person talking back into that space. Even if you're filming people talking to you, vary it a little. So in one shot they'll be on the left, another on the right, and it just breaks things up a bit. But that 180-degree rule is worth bearing in mind. With mobile filming, you can break it a little bit more because you're moving around and people have more of a sense of space. It's just worth being aware of. White balance is just a simple technical issue to be aware of, where if you're doing any filming, electrical light and natural light are slightly different in how the camera recognises that. So if you're using any kind of camera, it won't apply with a flip, but any kind of more expensive camcorder, you do a white balance first, which is you basically show it a sheet of white paper and press white balance, and it will know that that is white. If you don't do this, then sometimes things will look blue or yellow depending on whether you're inside or outside, and the light effects are different. Some other basic rules: don't cut on movement, wait for the movement to stop before you cut in the editing process. Keep it simple generally. There's a temptation to use all of the bells and whistles on editing software, so you have spinning boxes and wipes and fades and all the rest of it. A quick fade, sometimes a wipe can be alright. The spinning boxes, no. You just want to keep it as simple as possible. You don't want people to be aware of the editing itself most of the time, particularly if you're telling a natural story. The difference there, I think, is if you're doing the vodcast type example, Rocket Boom, you'll notice they used a lot of editing techniques like the kind of repetition, split screens, the mirror images, things like that, which are, again, very kind of postmodern style. But generally, you don't want to do any editing. And finally, audio is a key. Good audio is a key to good video. You can always rescue video if you've got good audio. If your audio's bad, there's nothing you can do about it. As with audio, you need to be thinking about content and colour. Think about the context of what your subject is. think about cutaways. So cutaways are where someone might be talking, but you cut away to their hands, or a shot from the back of the head, or the thing that they are talking about.